It has been far too long since I had new content of solo leveling, because as you all know, solo leveling has been on a brief hiatus for a few months because Season 1 came to a conclusion with Chapter 110, and now, just in the past week and a half, you have it to where Chapter 111 and Chapter 112 have officially come out, and this pretty much marks the beginning of Season 2, and just right off the bat, there is so much going on in Chapter 111, and there's a lot of setup for Chapter 112. There is just so much content, so much that made me smile, because honestly, I miss this series. It's been too long, and I love solo leveling. It may not be the most in-depth series, it may not be the best series of all time, but it is definitely a series that brings joy, puts a smile on my face, and I just relax and just, I guess, read the content. And so, let's get right into it. Chapter 111, and if you haven't read the two chapters, I recommend you stop the video and go read them yourself, because I don't want to spoil you. But okay, Chapter 111. There is so much going on. So we have a lot of setup with these creatures and stuff, talking about an architect. We see a shadow monarch, the brilliant light or whatever. There is just so much that is getting name dropped throughout Chapter 111, and you're just like, what is going on here? What does this mean? And are they actually talking about, Jin, our MC of solo leveling? I'm going to assume they are. When you see them talking about the shadow monarch, and we think about what Jin represents and his power, and pretty much how like they come out of his shadow and stuff, you could kind of say that they're probably, when they say Shadow Monarch, they're talking about Jin. But what is this architect that they were talking about? What is this, like, brilliant light that they're talking about? And who was actually fighting against these creatures in the middle of the chapter towards the end? If I had to assume anything, I would probably put my finger on it that it might be Jin's father. Because let's take a moment to look at the panels, okay? So, when you look at this image of this dude popping up and trying to stop these creatures apparently going after whatever is in Korea, you see how he's like, I won't let you do this, and he goes in, and when you look at his facial expression, his build and everything, you get the impression that it could be Jin, but obviously we know it's not Jin, and so the only person that it could potentially be is his father. So this pretty much means that his father is actively out there doing things, but on top of that, he knows something about the world that even Jin himself has no idea about, and this has been hinted at for a long while, since Season 1. It's been such a long time, honestly, since we had any new content on Jin's father and knowing anything about him, and so I'm very curious, honestly. I'm very curious to see where that plot point is going to go and how long it's going to be until Jin potentially encounters his father once again and talks with him. I really want to see that. That'd be really cool if we get a little bit of world building and how the world works, etc., with these dungeons and all of that, and Jin's power, if his father comes up and kind of explains it. Maybe, Jin's father is in a very similar situation. What if he is someone that's also solo leveling? What if he is actually leveling up as he fights? That could be something like that's going on, because he was fighting those opponents towards the middle of Chapter 111. Whatever that may be, whatever's going on there, it's some pretty hype stuff. A lot of world building, a lot of information, a lot of setup. Can't wait to see where that's going to go. But okay. With all of that, though, we need to talk about what really, some really big setup, though, that happened in that chapter, and that was with the key that Jin has on him now. Apparently, this key will unlock a dungeon that he can enter into that will lead him back to where everything began. Now, there might be differences, who really knows, but overall, he's able to go back to that dungeon that he once entered in Chapter 1 of solo leveling and face off against those creatures that just decimated him at the beginning, but also kind of what gave him his power in the first place with that secret quest. So here's the question. What is actually going to happen, and what are those creatures? Because when you really think about everything that happened throughout, the beginning part of the series, and those creatures, they obviously had a high level of intellect. They were capable of speech. They had emotions. You had it to where, they obviously didn't have to kill Jin. They actually spared him and gave him power like he had. And when you look at everything, it's clear that all of this was set up. Is it destiny? Has this been predetermined where Jin would get this power and this is destiny? Or was he just lucky enough to be able to do it? And then what is the system? Why was he given this type of power? What is the system? And does it have anything to do with what maybe this architect is? There's so many questions I have, because now that the system is pretty much calling him to return back back to where it all began? Is he gonna fight those things, or are they actually going to join him and help him out? That's a good question, because when you really think about it, those beings were high tier level, and is Jin really capable of fighting something like that? I mean, look, he's fought like a Demon King. He's fought a Demon King. He has fought an Ant King that's basically Meruem from Hunter x Hunter Chimera Antark. He has definitely proven himself to be incredibly powerful. But when we really look at the beings that were in that double dungeon at the beginning of Solo Leveling, they had this presence about them, this aura that makes you feel like they're not pushovers, they're not weak by any means. And if Jin has to fight what that was, can he actually win? He may have an army, but can he do it? And I mean, those creatures technically gave Jin what he had, with that side quest and everything. So for all we know, they may have something to do with the system. They might be the ones that gave him the power he has. So if they can give him power, can they take it away? There's so many questions about that dungeon and all that, where it all began, and now that he's being called to it, it's very apparent that we're about to be getting a lot of world building and information about how the power system and everything actually works. I'm super excited. That is really some interesting content. I've been looking forward to that, because I mean, as I've talked about in my Season 1 reviews towards the end, I was wondering where the series can go next. I mean, now that Jin is like an S rank, like he's top tier basically, he's reaching the realm of the greatest of all hunters on the planet. And I mean, obviously there is entities that are making moves behind the scenes and doing things, but Jin has definitely proven himself to be very strong. I mean, he saved his mother, which is one of his main objectives, so he got that fulfilled. The only thing that he really needs to do now at this point is just keep the world safe, have it to where he finds out more about his father and the system. Once that is done, that's it. I mean, when you think about it, I really wonder what Season 2 is, going to be building up to, because I feel like this is going to be very chaotic. I feel like, we're finally getting into what the real story is about, because everything that happened previously was just all set up. It was all like a precursor to events to come. Jin was just building his army, and now his army is going to be put to use, because he has the Ant King a part of his army. He has, a bunch of other creatures that's a part of his army. He has, like, those orcs or whatever that's a part of his army. He has some really strong beings, and so, the question is, too, on top of all of this, if he does go to that dungeon and he has to fight those creatures, is he going to add them to his pool of creatures that he can summon? That would be really cool. Imagine if Jin is able to summon that creature, the smiling, like, statue dude that kind of really destroyed him at the beginning of the story. What if he's able to summon him as like a summon? That would be really freaking cool. I would love that if that happened, but we'll see where it's gonna go. But okay, despite all of that though, we also have Chapter 112. Now, Chapter 112 is not as, I guess, info-packed as 111 was, but 112 is actually something that sets up character interactions and a little bit more about Jin's personal life, which is very much appreciated. I love character development, and I love these little interactions with Jin and other characters, because it's stuff we do need. Even though I do love the power fantasy that the series is, and seeing him get stronger, go to dungeons, etc., it's really immersive. I do also like to see his everyday life and how he interacts with the people around him, and we know he created a guild. He needs to focus and, have a name, and I really hope it's not Solo Play Guild. I really hope that is not the name of his guild. That is such a bad name. Now, I know this is Solo Leveling, I know he's going to be pretty much solo fighting, but even then, calling your guild Solo Play Guild is just such a bad name. Like, there's just so much cooler names out there that he could easily have, but I can't believe he would choose that of all names. I really do hope that is changed. Which, speaking of which, he might not necessarily be full-on solo play, because since this is the beginning of Season 2, it's interesting that we're, kind of have a character wanting to join his group, wanting to join his guild, which could potentially help him out on, raids against dungeons. That's fascinating. We have the girl that he saved at the end of Season 1 from the ants wanting to join him. Now, the reason for it is very apparent if you read the chapter. She's crushing on him. She's really crushing on him. She's in love. She's blushing. It's very apparent by her interactions with Jin. So I do wonder where that's going to go, because Jin really hasn't had like a romantic relationship in this story. And usually these type of stories kind of have stuff like that. And I wonder if he will get feelings for her and actually maybe one day marry her or whatever, go out. That I am curious. I know that this isn't that type of story story, however, because Solo Leveling isn't really focused on that. It isn't focused on slice of life. It isn't focused on romance, etc. But I do know that some stuff like this does happen in stories, like subplots and all that, and I wonder if she will be able to join the guild, and even if she is not able to help him out in his hunts, she will definitely be able to interact with him more, and he will gain a bond with her. It'd be very fascinating to see him communicate with others and tell secrets that he doesn't really tell anyone to her. That'd be really cool. I think that would be an interesting change of pace for the story, but like I said, we'll see where the story goes as it progresses. But yeah, that's pretty much about it though. I mean, the 2 chapters are really good. Artwork is absolutely incredible, as always. Solo Leveling never disappoints with its artwork. I mean, it's beautiful. It's one of the reasons why I even decided to start it in the first place, is just because the artwork just stands out. It really stands out when you look at it, and it's good to see that the artwork is good. It's good to see that, you know, the artist is back and writing this series once again. I've been patiently looking forward to it, and it's finally here. But okay, with that, I'm going to leave it at that. I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And with that, Chibi out.